Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. I'm Emo Tempest and today I'm bringing to you my Opus 18 mono water deck. Now you guys, for some of you who, if you've been with me for a while, you know mono water has always been my thing. Waters I've always felt is the best element in any combination, right? Like putting water in anything makes your deck better. If you're new to the channel, first of all, welcome, and I'm here to give you guys my thoughts on why I like this deck and why I see it's very relevant in the meta. Obviously, by now, you've seen it already all over the place, right? In different versions. I'm giving you my take and why I'm playing some of these cards and so on and so forth, right? Regular deck profile. So I'm going to give you the changes too that I had from the beginning, and then we're going to talk about flex cards because that's kind of the big thing, because the meta is going to shift a little bit, I think, after the next week or so. And I kind of want to talk about that too. So without further ado, we're going to start off with the forwards. You got 3 Porums, 1 Blue Mage, 2 Titus, 2 Lena, 1 Lightning, 3 Ash, 3 Leviathan. That's it. Now, we do have the monsters. We have a Blue Worm and a Trouse here. It's very simple. The Porum is, just recursion. It's kind of like a little wall, and it's also a quick way to get back to get sneak in damage. Your opponent's rarely going to block him, you know that. If you're playing water, they don't want to give you back your Atomos or your Shieldra or another Leviathan, right? Sometimes they'll just take that, like let it go through because it's too early for them to get that disadvantage. I'm playing 1 copy of Blue Mage. The main reason is because we don't have any other way to deal with my opponent's break zone, right? Now, this is for a lot of the new decks that are coming out, right? Like, this was, just off the top of my head, right? There's Knights, anything with Earth, really, and even some wind options, right? Recursion is important in every deck. We have a little bit of it in this, and some decks do it better than others. Without being as that we have Lightning in our Light and Dark slot, I can't play Kadaj, which might be my second choice. And so, in order for us to have somewhat of a balanced game, or somewhat of a make things more difficult for my opponent, right? I guess you could say, is we needed to find something for that, and Blue Mage covers that. It's not the best and it's not the most, but it's also not the worst. So he fills that role, and he does it pretty good sometimes. On his own, he can just be a problem sometimes if your opponent doesn't have multiple outs or ways to to deal with him, right? Because you could use his ability to buff his power, and if your opponent doesn't respond in that moment, then he's gonna keep getting away with it, right? And same thing if he's on the stack with something else, then he needs multiple things. So it's just another great way to expose your opponent's resources. We're only playing 2 Titus because 3 often feels like a dead draw, and he does his work. He sticks around anyway, right? A lot of these things are sticky, and so we don't need to waste the slots for him. Same thing with the Lena. I was playing 3 originally, and I found that I don't need 3. The idea of getting my backups or my break zone being untouched is nice, but she doesn't do anything until mid to late game when I'm able to do it, right? She's honestly, Lena is more of a closer than a utility tool. The other part is nice, yes, but realistically, it's I'm going to play this card, I'm going to special Leviathan or anything if I already have Leviathan out, and then I'm going to win this game. And that's what she does. She's very powerful in that regard. Now, if she manages to live a turn, sure, then my opponents can't misdragon me or whatever, right? That's fine. Or I'll play her if I see a Kadaj early, but that's a different story. Next is the Lightning. Yeah, I want to play stuff like Shinryu, I really do, and I want to play stuff like Kadaj. But for the purpose of this deck, I think it's important to take advantage of all of your resources, right? And so Lightning helps you do that. So when she attacks, you choose a forward. Other than Lightning, you may return to your hand, and then for 1, you could put 2 cards from your top of your deck to the break zone and choose a forward, dull it, or activate it. You can only use this ability once per turn, so on either player's turn, obviously. The first part is just added control to your list. You can send your forward to your opponent's backs and just clear a path, or you can recur stuff like your Ash, or trigger Leviathan, or whatever you want, pretty much. And so some of the other combos you can do in other versions of this deck, like with modifications, is you can activate your blue worms, have them swing in, swing with lightning, lift your blue worm back up so he won't die. This will also trigger Tros. Like I said, it would trigger Leviathan, and you know, the list goes on. So that's just something. Now the second part is also very important, right? We want to be able to put cards in our break zone faster than we can lose the game, right? Because once we drop Lena and we want to cast Leviathan for free, it just feels really good. And anytime Leviathan hits the board, your opponent automatically is having a bad day. So this expedites this for us. Also helps control the board, and also it's just a pretty good 9k body, right? Just very strong. Ash is the bread and butter, really. This deck, if it's not obvious, if you haven't been playing Mono Water, you're doing a mid-range to late game control deck. You're just building your backups because you need them for Ash. You let your EX burst do the work, and Ash just swings in for damage, right? Ash is both removal and your game pieces, your main game piece. So being able to use her multiple times, like I said, is the important part, which is why we have Lightning, which is why we play Levies and Scholars, and we have Leviathans for, you know, bringing it back and stuff like that. So yeah, just that, you know, a free, almost free card that reduces power is just very strong. You know, for the most part, there's the effects that power creep this game or whatever are cards that say cannot be taking damage that's less than its power, or doesn't receive damage from effects or abilities. Reducing power has always been the way around all of this, and Ash is just a great card that deals with all of those things. Now we have Leviathan, which is again just our big boss monster. Helps close out games and just puts a lot of pressure on your opponent to do things sometimes, right? Some people have always thought, like, and I and myself, of course, included, has always thought that sometimes I don't want to put cards in your opponent's hand because that just gives them more value to do stuff on the next turn. Yes, you're not wrong when you say that, right? But the deck also has the abilities to keep you in the position, right? And now that Lena is playing Leviathan for free, we don't have to use all those resources, right? We can do this with full grip, and our backups, like Summoner, will be active. Scholar will be active. I have, you know, a Fanford Leviathan in hand, or even, you know, pick a Leviathan, right? Whichever, or anything really. I have those cards all in hand ready to use now, right? So now that he's, you know, comes out for free, he's just 10 times better. Or 9 times, right? Because of his CP cost. 2 Kuchulins. Now, the summons, it's up to you. This is your playstyle, where your playstyle comes in. I chose variety here. I have 2, 2, 2, 2, and 2, and 2 of the level. So 2 Kuchulains, 2 6-drops, 2 Sildras, 2 of the new Leviathan, 2 Fanfords, 2 of the old Leviathan. I found Atamos and Remora to be the better ones. Remora is just your EX count, of course, but more often times than not, your opponent loves running into this. It's actually one of their favorite things to do, and that's why we play it at 3. Second is Atamos. You know, the Fanfords are nice. Fanfords help us, you know, if we're floating ashes in our hand, then we need to swing, you know, get rid of 2 things. You know, you Fanford, and then next, you also gives you option to play the next one, so on. It's just a little more versatility, right? We want things that don't target, so that's where these come into play. And then Leviathan is always going to be a good card, no matter what. This is both, you know, you play Chocobo in Wind, so it's kind of like that in the same respect, where you don't draw, but you're going to be able to save something, right? And that's really what they use it for. Aside from, you know, adding to their cast counter and all that stuff. But the main thing is keeping something alive, right? Like keeping their plays alive. And so when Leviathan, this Leviathan helps with playing Ash, you know, killing with Leviathan, tons of things. So it's up to you if you want to up or down these numbers, right? If you prefer, you know, triple Sildra, I'll get into the Sildra right now. If you prefer triple this Leviathan than the triple Remora, or you want 3 of this and only 1 Fanfrit, that's fine too. Or, you know, 2 Atomos and triple Cuchulainn. Those are all okay. If that's going to change with the way the meta goes, always. If we find ourselves stuck too many times with something we can't target or things that prevent us from doing our plays, Cuchulainn's going up for sure. We're only running 2 Leviathan because we don't have... Because we're waiting for the most part to do our thing, this doesn't hurt us too much. Like most things don't hurt us too much. So having to... You don't obviously pitch it right away if you know you only have 2. Just hold on to it. This is the one you hold on to anyway, right? So, and with Porums, we're able to get it back. So those are your... Same thing here. Leviathan gets his cards back. So those are the summons. You should know what all of these do. But, you know, if you don't, then... And you just... I'll leave the deck in the description, obviously. You can read them. Blue Worm is also your other flex pick. The biggest thing I always get is, why am I not playing Echidna? I believe that's the new one's names. My biggest problem with that is getting the second effect. Now, Echidna reads nice on paper, in my opinion, right? Like, play Echidna, get a summon back. But in order to have Echidna do things, you have to discard a summon. Now, in a losing position, I don't ever need to do this because... Or I don't ever want to actually do this, right? Because I'm holding on to these summons to shift the tide of the game, right? For me. And so I feel like Echidna lends itself to... I'm gonna either try to like sacrifice a piece that I'm holding on to, or, you know, something that can be useful to me later. And I don't like that feeling. And so the main times it's been like, I can't activate Echidna because I'm holding on to the, you know, cancel on auto ability, or the you know, the Fanfrit or my Sild or something silly, right? Like it's always gonna happen because that's just the nature of card games. And so, like, I took it out. Now you could put it back in if you feel so inclined to, but I feel like it's gonna happen anyway, that you're gonna be stuck in there. If there was a regular way to recur summons, like, right, like an attack and get a summon back, Mr. Man in Black, you know, stuff like that, then I wouldn't worry about it too much, right? And I don't mean, like, I know he doesn't put them back in your hands, but it's okay to have that option to, you know, pitch something to bring out Echidna to attack and draw, and then, you know, attack with Man in Black, get your... get that summon, put it on reserve for later. Stuff like that, right? That's where Echidna shines. And so I took it out, and that's that. Tros is still very, very, very strong. Fits in the deck just peachy. Another control tool and another draw engine for you. Your backup line is probably where it gets interesting. The Scholars are the flex pick as well. You can substitute this with anything that breaks, in my opinion. Again, I choose the Scholars to continue to trigger things like the Ash, like the Leviathan, like the Tros, things like that. Saving my characters is important, always. The Yagrosh is too important this meta. Ice and Ice variants, Ice Earth, Ice Lightning, Ice Fire, all of those are very, very, very relevant at this point. So Yagrosh just says, you're not going to target my forwards unless the effect says you don't have to target, you can't target my backups, right? So he's going to eat up all your Dolan Freezes, which means all your other cards are safe from most, you know, lockdown situations. I've been talking about this card since last set with some of our locals and with my other fellow water players, Brandon, and yeah, it sits very nice. I'm glad everyone's not completely asleep on it. So just if you don't have one, get them. They're cheap. They're like cents on the dollar, so no big deal. Yuna's a staple. I'm gonna miss it in L3. Only 2 summoners. The Kalmia is the important one, I think, that people aren't using enough of, I think. All cards in your breakzone cannot be chosen by your opponent's summons or abilities. So adds that second layer to it like Lena does. And then the power of the forward you control cannot be decreased by your opponent's summons or abilities, right? So the first thing you need to understand is that mono water is relevant, and so the mirror matches are going to happen all the time. This is the deciding factor in that game. Sometimes both of these are, the Yagrosh and the Kalmia. If my opponent can't Ash, then we're okay, right? That's when my summons are going to be doing more work. The other thing is, you know, we have the Rydias casting Remora for free. We have just so many other effects. You know, the assassin, the dark assassin that attacks and reduces the board. We have a lot of things that reduce power now. They're coming more, or other colors are getting these abilities as well now, right? Or these options, and so this is just very important for us to have in mirror matches, or just ways for other opponents to do it. Like, I feel like this card, people don't play it because it reminds them of Minwoo, sort of, where it's like it doesn't do any immediate satisfaction, right? You want that immediate gratification where you're searching or you're getting value, right? But the value has always been with Minwoo is that you're locking out certain matchups from winning, right? And this one locks out the mirror match in whoever gets it first. Now, why you don't need to play more than one because it's so important is because you have Sildra, which is why the backup count is so low. Sildras were always going to fix your backup line. Now you're wondering, why am I not playing 3? Well, because we have tons of ways to search it, right? We have the Thornton, the Walkers can get us there, and then we'll find it. It's not a big deal. Like, you're already going to be, you know, playing the long game. You're drawing enough from your EX bursts and stuff like that. You're going to have value. So I don't think you need to sweat it. But if obviously you're uncomfortable, like I said, the summons can go up and down depending on your play style. 2 Walkers, just very good. If I think I would run this at 3. In a different deck, you'd run this at 3 for sure. Merle Whip and then the Thorntons just get you whatever you want. If my opponent manages to like be able to break a backup, or lets me send a backup, I get rid of this always. But Thornton fixes you always. EX Burst, again, another card your opponents love to hit in damage. It's actually their second favorite next to Remora, especially on turn 1. That's the list, guys. Some of the changes, right? So this was the original one. Had Porums, Larsas, triple Lunafreya. Lunafreya is actually terrible, unfortunately for us. And then I liked the Geomancers for a while. Cloud of Darkness is another one that I feel is unnecessary with the amount of removal and control we have. You don't need to worry that, like, I just don't think it's completely necessary, because your EX bursts and everything, and the way you build out should fix the game itself. You can always mess with these other ones, like adding the Lenora to sure you get this. I cut out a few things because I don't like decking out, right? Like, decking out is a very big problem for Mono Water, and it always has been. So I adjusted my numbers to reduce that. But yeah, this was the previous version that had a little less stuff. I'd also had the triple Sildred, but again, the biggest thing I was finding was that I was drawing so many cards that I was decking out a little faster than I'd like to. So your flex choices that we can talk about that I see flying around too. I put 2 Blue Mages here just so we could talk about them, but we kind of already did that. You can change that number if you'd like, but that's up to you. Ingrid is another option to remove your opponent's stuff. This is kind of like a bigger package. I might pursue changing the Ingrid for Blue Mage, but I think Blue Mage goes longer term, in my opinion. So again, and this also draws us cards, which I'm not opposed to early on, but I don't like decking out. And so this is why. But maybe a 1-of isn't a big deal like the other guy, right? Next, the Lightnings. I like Lightning, but realistically, Ash does what Lightning does just as good in the terms of removal, right? Because I know this removes from the game. And so the problem with this and the difference between this and Ash is that my opponent needs to have more than 2 forwards, right? So in like another control version, I can't play this against 1 forward and deal anything, right? I'd have to have the S to respond to my own effect, to remove Lightning, to get her, you know, to target 1 character, or like, while my opponent only has 1 character on the board. I'd rather just play the other Lightning, which I'm doing anyway, and have that benefit the rest of the deck. I think Lightning is a great card, don't get me wrong. I think we just got the reveal that it's the February promo, which I'm super excited about, and I'll be looking for those. Rinoa. I'm seeing Rinoa around. I like Rinoa for a few reasons. She didn't make the cut because I chose to get more summons. And the summons cover a few more of my bases, right? Now, the warp is kind of not important to me here. And the other effect that it does here is, all right, so it's just a little more expensive than she cuts out to be, right? And at a warp 2, you kind of like, sometimes you don't have that luxury of waiting, and that's my biggest problem with her. I like the other effect. I wish Angela was in the picture at least for Angela Cannon, but if again, I'm sure I'm probably holding on to Ash or Leviathan in hand. Yeah, it's 9k though. That's right. That's the most it's going to be able to do in this deck, and so sometimes that doesn't cut it for us. So for those reasons, she didn't make the cut. I think she's a fantastic card. She helps deal with, you know, your any of your annoying 2-drops, right? Like your Zidanes, your twins, and just the long list of 2-drops that you don't like, right? She'll come in, you pay 2. That paying 2 doesn't hurt ever to, you know, to get rid of something, to put in the brakes on, right? To be fair, for that reason, she's really, really good. But that has to be a meta call, in my opinion, right? Like, she comes in if RPP and like 2-drop decks, or like a deck with, you know, if Ixion becomes super important again as well, then so does Renoa. Soul. I love this card. This card was super strong in sealed and stuff, and I just think it can be put in most decks because he's a 3/9 and his effect triggers on both turns. And so, you know, being able to give all your forwards 1,000 helps water out a lot, because that's kind of where we struggle in a build like this, because we don't have the luxury of adding the other Waka to buff us, and I don't want to play, and we're not playing the Sarah engine. We're choosing utility in our backups over, you know, a little first turn play, right? And so Soul helps us push the game. But again, I'm conflicted with this and the Kadaj, right? Because both of these are very good cards, but I like Lightning overall in general more. So if one of these fits your playstyle, please try them out and incorporate it, and maybe that would be better for you. The same thing with the Veritas. I think the Veritas though has to come in a 2 package. Like, I would bring 2 of these because this is old school, right? This is, you know, play Veritas, give me a forward, fan for it, give me a character, right? Like, it's great. And so this is another flex pick for you. The Lakshmis I wanted to talk about. I think at the moment, or at least for this build, it is out of the question, because you don't want to deck out. I'm not saying it's a bad card, because it definitely isn't. It's one of my favorites. But it's the same thing here. You're gonna, even after 1, you're gonna be put in a bad situation, because it's gonna take too long for you to draw those cards, and she doesn't really do anything, right? Like, compared to Theodore, even if it said you had 5 cards in hand, or more than 5 cards in hand, cannot attack, or has haste and cannot attack, or forwards gain 1,000, something like that, right? Even for the turn she comes out would have been nice, because that would like push the game forward, right? But the drawing the cards after 4 turns is not enough for her. So, at least not in this list. I'm going to say that right now. I'm not saying she's bad. I'm just saying not in this list. Dancer, Lenora, and Luzaf are your backup flexes, in my opinion. If you really felt to increase the EX burst, you can put these in there. My biggest problem with this, though, is that if we... everything else kind of already locks into place, right? Because you're going to have... In a normal game, you should have Yuna, either Yogg or Kalmia, or both, and then one of these, right? Thornton, Waka, or Merlwyb. And then the last 5th slot should be either Scholar or Summoner, if not both of them, right? Like, if you can have 3 of these, and Scholar and Summoner, you're fine. But I don't like getting locked into backups, right? And so that's why I kind of took off both of these. The Luzaf is a very great card. It's one of my favorites. If you guys remember, my Windwater deck used this a lot. And I think it's a very, very cool card because of its back attack ability. But again, I hate getting locked into backups because it just sucks sometimes. You know, when you want to play something that you need but you can't, and so you're drawing into dead card. Even more, they're more dead than normal. They're dead. And so we'll take those out. Dancer is your last option. I think it's good. It's breakable. It's very strong. I have to, I gotta, this meta's gonna be slow because, I mean, the meta's gonna play out slower than normal because there's no major events. You know, we have Xanarkand right around the corner, and so we don't know where this is gonna sit. I think you could take one of these, or you could take this and a Scholar if you'd like, or both, or one or the other, however, whatever you want, and it'll be fine because you will find a use for this. There's no time that this won't be useful. But is it important enough is my question, right? And so for me at the time of building this deck and after playtesting it for a little while, it was not. And so that's why we're there. Guys, that's going to do it for the deck profile. Please let me know what you like and what you think about it. The deck list will be in the description below. For anyone playing Xanarkand, best of luck. I hope, I wish you all the best. And if you take anything from this, please give me a shout out when you win. But yeah, guys, I hope you enjoyed it. I'm going to be working on a few more. Sorry for the delay on these, by the way. We're going to be doing deck profiles this season, I guess, instead of the Tales series, mainly because I just want to see if you guys like them or if you respond better to them. But also, again, sorry it was late because we didn't really have locals for 2 weeks. It's just, you know, the holidays, people were doing things and stuff, so finally able to play and enough to give you guys information based on experience. So yeah, with that being said, thanks for listening, guys, and I'll catch you on the next one.